Fire. It's one of humanity's oldest, most destructive enemies. And for centuries, we've really only had one main weapon against it: water. But what if there's a smarter way? A way to fight fire using physics itself, making everything safer, more effective, and a whole lot less destructive? Well, today, we're going to dive into a fascinating piece of tech called the Firejector.
To really get why a new approach is so critical, you have to start right here, with the human cost. Every time a firefighter has to run into a burning building, the danger they face is, well, it's just immense. It's a life-or-death gamble against an incredibly chaotic and deadly environment.
And this brings us right to the core problem in firefighting. You see, it's not just about fighting the flames, it's also about dealing with the consequences of the fight itself, where the cure can sometimes cause a whole different kind of problem.
And the danger, it comes from all sides. It's not just the fire you see. Firefighters are dealing with blistering heat, a nasty cocktail of toxic gases that can ignite in a flash, and of course, the terrifying risk that the entire building could just collapse around them at any moment.
And then you've got this. Let's say they put the fire out. The battle isn't over, not by a long shot. Those traditional high-volume fire hoses cause what's known as massive secondary damage. So everything that didn't burn, your belongings, important documents, all your electronics, can be completely ruined by the water. It's this awful trade-off.
So you've got this huge, dangerous problem that's just begging for a new idea. And that's where our story takes a turn, away from the problem and toward a really clever solution thought up by someone who lived this reality day in and out.
So who came up with this? Meet Trevor Wicks. He wasn't some engineer in a distant lab. He was a firefighter on Vancouver Island. He was right there on the front lines, and he saw, with his own eyes, that they needed a better, safer way to get smoke and all those flammable gases out of a building, and to do it fast.
And this wasn't some flash-in-the-pan idea. The concept actually goes all the way back to 1990. By 95, Wicks was in his workshop, building and testing the very first prototypes. A year later, he filed the patents. This whole timeline just shows you this was a really thoughtful, deliberate process. This was a genuinely new idea. So how does this thing actually work? This is where it gets really, really cool. It's not about brute force. It's about using some basic principles of physics to control a fire in a totally different way.
Okay, the secret sauce is a principle called mist entrainment. Now, I want you to forget everything you know about a typical fire hose. This system creates what the inventor calls a vacuum made of mist. It literally creates a force that pulls or entrains the smoke, the heat, and even the flames right out of the building. It's an extraction system.
And to give you a sense of the power we're talking about here, get this. That stream of mist shoots out at over 200 kilometers an hour. The inventor himself compares the force it generates to an avalanche. Think about that. A massive, unstoppable movement.
So how in the world does mist create that much force? Well, it happens in 4 steps. First, special nozzles shoot out a focused cone of superfine mist. Second, as that cone blasts forward, it creates negative pressure behind it, kind of like a slipstream, which starts sucking in all the surrounding smoke and heat. Third, and this part is just brilliant, when that intense heat hits the fine mist, it instantly flashes it to steam, causing it to expand like crazy. And fourth, that massive steam expansion acts like a turbocharger, boosting the power and blasting the whole mixture out. It literally uses the fire's own energy against itself.
Okay, so the physics is one thing, but how do you actually use this thing in a real fire? Well, the strategy for deploying it is just as smart as the science behind it.
It's a coordinated 2-part attack. The first unit gets set up in an opening, like a window, from the outside in less than a minute. They turn it on, and it immediately starts acting like a giant exhaust fan, just pulling all that nasty stuff out. Then, a second unit is placed in another opening, like a doorway, and it pushes a cool, fine mist in. And what happens? The exhaust unit pulls that fresh mist right toward the fire, creating this perfectly controlled, super efficient airflow.
And the effect is, well, it's total. It attacks all 3 sides of the classic fire triangle at once. It hits the heat, because the mist absorbs it, cooling everything down dramatically. It hits the fuel because the mist dampens all the flammable stuff, making it way harder for it to catch fire. And it hits the oxygen because all that steam it creates helps push oxygen away from the fire's source. It just systematically shuts the whole thing down.
So this is where the idea gets really powerful, because it isn't just about putting out one house fire a little better. The implications for safety, for saving property, and for just overall efficiency, they're huge.
Remember that awful trade-off we talked about? Fire damage versus water damage? Well, look at this. Because the system uses such a low volume of water, and the mist is so fine, there's little to no water damage left behind. I mean, for anyone who's ever had to deal with a fire, saving your property from both threats is an absolute game changer. And the benefits just keep stacking up. It can save lives by letting firefighters attack from the outside. It makes search and rescue way safer because the inside is clearer and cooler. The units can run by themselves, which is a huge deal. It frees up the crew to do other critical things. It's super efficient with water, and by controlling the airflow, it stops flying embers from spreading the fire to other buildings.
But what's really amazing is just how versatile this technology is. Yeah, we've been talking about house fires, but think bigger. This could be used for fires on airplanes or ships, in dangerous mine shafts, even on oil and gas wells. It could handle hazardous material spills, prevent explosions, or fight fires in warehouses and other huge, inaccessible spaces. This isn't just one product. It's a whole platform.
When you boil it all down, the Firejector is just a fantastic example of a bigger idea. That by applying a simple law of physics in a new way, you can completely revolutionize how we solve an age-old problem. And that leaves us with a pretty big question, doesn't it? What other elegant physics-based solutions are we overlooking right now that could make our world fundamentally safer?